So first off, I've been asking everyone, just give us your background, a little bit about yourself. I know we know you, but to
I
the
don't. Well, as you know, I came here when I was 16 years old. My mother brought me here on a student visa from the Dominican Republic. Me and five other of my siblings, and went to Walton High School. I did not have my residency card. She brought me here on a travel visa, and did did not return us. So I was undocumented after I graduated high school, which is very tough. Rather than getting myself into trouble doing bad things, what I decided to do is just pick up every odd job. I worked in gas station. I worked stock boy in a supermarket, bagging groceries, and until I got my so-called papers, like we say. So I got my residency, and then I joined. That's when I decided to join the military. And it might sound corny, but I joined our great military because I really wanted to give back. I love the United States, and I still remember watching the movies, the old World War II movies, where I said, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to join, and I want to serve. So I did. I served, and I went to the first Gulf War. Uh, uh, I was actually offered, after completing my service, I was stationed in San Diego. I was offered a very nice job, making $90,000 a year in 1992. I remember that was a lot of money, but I wanted to come home to the Bronx, and I came to the Bronx, and I went to Bronx Community College.
wow,
And
you
then
went with the weather too.
yeah, I know. But obviously, it's a combination. To be fair, I miss my family, and I love the East Coast, and I love the Bronx. I really did. So I came back. I went to college here in Bronx Community College, and when I graduated, I joined the NYPD. That charted my life service, if you will. 25 years. I retired in July of 2019. uh, Inside the police department, just so you know, just a little bit, I was a detective in narcotics. I was an undercover. Uh, I responded to the 9/11 attacks after the first plane hit, before the second plane hit. It was very, I was a first responder, and I'm very lucky to be here. I'm no hero, but the heroes were the people that have lost their lives that day and years subsequently after that, because that's what the untold story is, that a lot of people keep dying as a result of being exposed to the toxins in 9/11, down in Ground Zero. Uh, I uh, I was internal affairs. Um, I also was in Fugitive Enforcement Division. I was in counterterrorism, and I retired as a Special Operations Lieutenant in the 46th Precinct. I'm very proud of the service that I had. And one tidbit that a lot of people don't know about me is that I was involved in probably around between the whole time that I was at it was in the NYPD. I'm sorry, I was I was involved in like 10,000 arrests and never received a civilian complaint. So I'm very proud about that. Yeah,
That is
never received a CCRB. And that's one of the things that I obviously, if I did, it would have been out already. That guy was always. But I'm very proud of that, only because, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that an officer that receives a complaint is a bad cop. But I believe that somebody that does an extraordinary job, based on the circumstances and the environment that sometimes police officers are in, patrolling the city of New York, especially in poor neighborhoods. So I decided to run for Congress after I retired, only because, like, I wanted to be the voices of what I feel are people that are not being heard, and we did a decent job, I believe. Jamal Bowman ended up winning. I created, I believe, what a good friendship with Congressman Engel. And afterwards, because of the George Floyd and the whole defund the police, a lot of folks started asking me to run for Bronx Borough President. I did not want to run for any office again. That's something that I wanted to do, but some people convinced me that there's a surge of urgency, because as crime goes up, and we believe that the current elected officials right now um, are not being truthful with the role of the police. Uh, that we needed somebody to actually, and somebody from the Bronx, to be honest with you, to speak to what the needs of our community are. And lastly, the Bronx is 62 out of 62 in many categories when it comes to education, housing, when it comes to healthcare. 62 out of 62, and it's been like that for the last 40 years. So, what are elected officials doing about this? So that's like what I decided, that it's time for somebody new with a new face, that doesn't have the baggage, if you will, of being an elected official in the past. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm running.
Why do you think your background will fit in being able to lead a borough?
Well, absolutely. So, as you know, Bronx Borough President really doesn't have any legislative powers. It really, makes suggestions for land use and controls the community boards. So, me personally, 25 years working in the community. I've seen, especially somebody like me. I graduated, the only candidate right now that went to high school in the Bronx. I went to college in the Bronx. I bought my home in the Bronx. I raised my kids in the Bronx. Um, you know, and was there to see our community probably at our worst. I gives me a perspective, a unique perspective that other candidates, I believe, don't have, especially the candidates that have been career politicians. I think they're more geared into how are things going to work politically as opposed to how am I going to advocate and work with the public, and especially with the people of the Bronx. So that gives me a unique perspective.
Hmm. What do you think? I mean, what are some top issues that you think are that you want to get in there if you were elected and just start tackling?
Well, number one issue is education, and I believe education. We all say is the number one issue, but I say it because I see it every day, and I saw it every day when I was working in the streets of the Bronx. Without education, with education, everything else falls in place. If we continue and to give poor education to our kids, then that's when you get the, school to prison pipeline. That's when you get the results in getting jobs. We need to prepare our kids for the future. And I believe wholeheartedly that we do not spend enough money in education, because when we invest in our future, then we won't have to invest so much in public safety. Perhaps we don't have to invest so much, on healthcare, because people are going to get educated enough to start eating right, to doing the right things. So that's the number one issue by far, in my opinion. A lot of people think it's public safety and that's law and order. No, it's not. It's really educating our kids, and I saw it every day. There's a mental health a situation that we can tackle through the school system when we catch them early. So that would be by far the number one issue that we need to tackle in the Bronx.
What's another big issue?
Well, like I said, housing.
Mhm.
Housing. We have a lot of homeless, and I gotta check what the numbers are, but it seems like a homeless shelter is popping up everywhere in the Bronx. Hey, I mean, if you look at every community board and every corner of the Bronx, it seems like a homeless shelter. We need to really, especially and this, it's very near and dear to my heart, with our homeless community. There's 25,000 veterans in the Bronx. Uh, Quite a few don't have housing, and that should not happen in the United States of America, in my opinion. But housing, it's becoming a pandemic, not knowing something what's happening with the COVID situation. But we need to tackle. We need to start empowering our communities into home ownership. We need to start creating more co-ops. Maybe, I mean, it might sound drastic. Maybe start, identifying buildings and landlords they're not doing the right thing. Take them over, convert them to co-ops, because we need to start providing the opportunity for home ownership to a lot of our folks. And lastly, healthcare outcomes. Those three things are in desperate need in the Bronx.
What about public safety? Of course, everyone probably wants to hear your take on that. Like you said, a lot happened over the summer, and you have a good handle on how it works. So, what do you think could be done to kind of bridge that gap between the community and police?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what happened with the legislators. So we implemented something called neighborhood coordinating program, and I was still in the force, and we had a great relationship with the community. I mean, and it was improving. So what happens is the pandemic comes and then George Floyd comes. And George Floyd, I'm telling you, I have not met one police officer, none of my friends that approve of what happened to George Floyd. That is, that officer deserves anything that's coming to him, because I never seen in my 25 years anybody sit on somebody's neck for 10 seconds, let alone for 8 minutes. I never seen that. So putting George Floyd aside, we have to remember that happened in Minnesota. It didn't happen in New York. So what happens is the New York legislators, our legislators, took an incident that happened somewhere else, and I'm all for the peaceful protest, and they decided to take action and start demonizing our own police here in New York City, because we can't take on all the issues that happen in other cities, in Alabama or Georgia, or I'm sorry, Atlanta, or any other city. We got to deal with what we have here in New York, and we have the best police department. We could have handled our own internal issues differently. The NYPD, there was no need, one, to create a state bill, and then on top of that, the city came and added a city bill that was deemed unconstitutional and we need to repeal. So what we did is that we demonized our own police department when we were at a good place. So, um, you know, I think it starts with, let's tell our public the truth. So what happens is our elected officials saw a political opportunity to start demonizing the police. And I wholeheartedly know that, because some of the people running for Bronx Borough President, I dealt with them when I was in the NYPD, and they portrayed themselves as being police friendly and always said, we have the best police department. And then they jumped on the bandwagon because it was the thing to do by politicians. So I'm gonna start changing that. I'm gonna start changing the rhetoric. It is something, we see our white communities when their kids, they tell their kids, say, listen, when you're in trouble, make sure you call 911, make sure you call the police. The police are your friends, and our white friends, they grow up learning that. Obviously, there has been a history, a very bad history with us, the minorities, and the old police and the way the police used to patrol our city. So I totally understand that. I was a product of that. I remember being slapped around in the 52nd precinct when I was a young kid. But our police department in the NYPD has changed. And it's okay to us to start telling our communities, hey, listen, we are moving in the right direction. But, for whatever reason, our politicians don't want to do that. I'm looking to change that because, I'm going to give you one tidbit. The last 5 years, do you know that the majority of the cops that have joined the police department in NYPD, because I'm talking solely NYPD, people here, NYPD, they think I'm talking about the entire police department in the whole United States, which I'm not. The majority of the people that have joined the NYPD are Dominican, of Dominican background. And I play around with the New York Dominican officers, because I tell them we're the new Irish. The police department used to be known as a pipeline of Irish jobs. And now it's not the case. It's Dominicans that are joining the police department. And it's something that the public doesn't know. It's a majority minority department right now. So I'm not going to say protective, because believe me, when a police officer does something wrong, I will be the first one to call him out. I was in internal affairs, so I also investigated corruption. So, but it's okay to say, listen, we need our police officers because it's going to keep our kids safe. It's okay to do that, and our politicians don't want to do that. They're very hesitant.
Do you have a campaign slogan?
That's a great question. Change. Time for change. And the change is more of, we don't need to elect career politicians, and especially for Bronx Borough President. We need to. The Democratic Party should be open, and I say the Democratic Party because I would be a great candidate if I was in a swing district. I think the Democratic Party would be salivating for me to run, based on my pedigree. But here in the Bronx, I think there's an entrenchment. And what I say change is, it's okay to have a non-career politician run, not go through I was a district leader, then I was a state assemblyman, and then I was, none of that, So I want to be able to say, listen, especially me, I'm a lifelong Democrat, so I want to change that. I think we should have more, regular folks teachers, firefighters, police officers, especially on the Democratic side, to come into government.
In terms of the Bronx, we've seen a lot of growth and a lot of progress. And then we had the pandemic. And unfortunately, a lot of people in our borough got sick. We saw a lot of the disparities come out even more so, during the pandemic. What's a way that you would push the Bronx forward if you were to be elected BP?
Well, it starts by campaigning and calling out what we all see that it's wrong, and we see a lot of progress. And I really have to look into this because we're still 62 out of 62, and it's been like that for the last 50 years. 40, 50 years. So what is it that Brooklyn is doing better or different? What is it that Queens and Staten Island Staten Island, I'm not really going to compare to Staten Island, but Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan, obviously. Why is the Bronx the 62nd county out of 62 and all the things that I said? And is it that our expectation is so low that we're saying, hey, listen, we're making progress, but are we still last on all these things? I don't want to see the Bronx back. So obviously, the land use and education. Are we investing the right amount of money in education? Is it coming to our borough as opposed to is it going to Queens? And I'm going to be very vocal about that. I want to be, there's a campaign, not 62, a campaign that, by the way, has been going on for 10 years. And, we still 62 out of 62 counties. So I don't know if I'm going to say, listen, we've seen a lot of progress in the Bronx. We have seen, things pop up, but who is it benefiting? I really have to get to the bottom of it. Is it benefiting, our real estate developers? Is it ready, landlords? I really, really need to look into it. I know that land use has, you have a lot of power because of the power that you have with the land use. So I'm going to use that power to make sure that we are no longer being considered last when it comes to all these things that I just said.
What do you stand for? I know it's kind of a tough one, and you probably stand for many different things, but what do you stand for?
Well, I stand for better education for our kids and safety and security for our citizens. That's in a nutshell what I want to, why I'm running and why I want to be elected Bronx Borough President.
Um, my next question, this is kind of a fun one. What's your favorite secret spot in the Bronx?
Wow.
And it can be, a restaurant, a view, a park, whatever.
Well, I'm going to give him a shout out to my very good friend, but there is this little, I'm going to say bougie lounge, little restaurant called Juca Latin Bistro, where I go, and, it's very, small, very nice. And that's usually where you're going to find me when I want to just tone down. It's called Juca Latin Bistro. It's up in Riverdale.
This is kind of a fun one, and I don't know how close you are, but what's a memory with Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. that you have?
On Ruben, don't kill me. On how bad he dances salsa. So he probably I was still a police officer, and he went into a nursing home, and I remember I was working, and he walked in and he grabbed this older lady. He tried to dance salsa, and I'm like, he's not good at all. He's not good at all. So, this was years ago, by the way, but he's a bad salsa dancer.
Anything else you wanted to add about your campaign, what you want voters to know?
Well, like I said, we're a grassroots campaign. We're hoping to obviously reach the funding, the matching fund threshold of fundraising, and we probably are going to outwork everybody else on the ground. But we're just grassroots, and we really, really, really care about the borough of the Bronx. Yeah. So I'm hoping to just get elected for one term, and if people don't like what I do, I'll be the first one to say, hey, listen, not for me. You guys can find somebody better.